Were the 1970s the ugliest decade for cars ever? Gearheads, today we're diving deep into controversial waters with no life vest to bring you what we think are the 18 ugliest cars from the 1970s. Get ready to disagree, get ready to have your nostalgia challenged, and get ready because we're holding nothing back. Alright, starting at number 18, we have the Lincoln Versailles. Seriously, who was Lincoln thinking of fooling? Picture this, they took a Ford Granada, slapped on a fancy grille, and added a so-called Continental kit at the back, and voila, a luxury car? Not by a long shot. What we got was a mismatched, out-of-proportion disaster that barely whispered luxury when it should have roared it. It looked like a Ford in a tuxedo, except the tux was 2 sizes too big and borrowed last minute. Moving on to number 17, we cross the Atlantic to Europe, where Volvo dared to be different, maybe too different. In 1978, Volvo teamed up with the famed Italian design house Bertone to create the 262C. Now, you'd think that merging Swedish safety with Italian flair would yield something spectacular, right? Turns out that was a beautiful disaster waiting to happen. Bertone took Volvo's already boxy 260 coupe, chopped its roofline, and covered it with a vinyl top. The outcome was a car with sharp angles and awkward proportions that clashed horribly. The thick C-pillar and lower roof made it look stumpy and unbalanced, like a sculpture that never quite found its groove. Could Volvo have successfully merged Swedish practicality with Italian design panache? The answer is a resounding maybe, but only if both parties had taken a risk on genuine innovation. Instead of trying to retrofit style onto an already uninspiring chassis, a ground-up redesign might have produced a car that balanced safety, functionality, and beauty. At number 16, the Morris Marina enters the scene. The car, a British saloon, was intended to be a mass-market success. However, it was bland, uninspired, and built with questionable quality. It sold in large numbers, yes, but only because it was a no-frills, get-you-from point A to point B type of car. In a decade full of bold design statements, the Marina was the safe, uninspired option that simply didn't care about style. Next up at number 15, we have an American compact that was meant to be fuel-efficient but ended up being all about mediocrity in design, the Plymouth Cricket. The Cricket was essentially a rebadged Hillman Avenger from the UK, and let's be honest, you start with a design that's already bland, you're not going to win any beauty contests. It looks so generic that it might as well have been invisible. No flair, no excitement, just a car that existed without really making a statement. It was the automotive equivalent of plain toast. Rolling in at number 14, we find the Datsun B210, another car that was built to be economical but forgot that aesthetics matter too. The B210 had a tall, narrow profile that gave it an awkward, almost top-heavy look. Its proportions were off, making it look like it had been designed in a hurry with little regard for style. This car was all about practicality, and its bland exterior design was a stark reminder that sometimes, in the race for affordability, you sacrifice the visual appeal entirely. Coming in at number 13, the Oldsmobile Omega was supposed to be an American muscle car revival by 1973. Instead, it turned out to be a sad shadow of what muscle cars once were. Essentially a rebadged Chevrolet Nova, the Omega tried to inject a bit of Oldsmobile spirit into the mix. But its front grille, stacked with thick horizontal bars, was downright ugly. It was like they took the aggressive design cues of a muscle car and turned them into something clumsy and unconvincing. This Omega didn't just fail to impress, it served as a stark reminder that sometimes, holding on to outdated design ideas only leads to a broken promise. At number 12, we revisit American design with the Ford Pinto, a car that has become infamous not just for its safety issues, but also for its bland, uninspired looks. Forget about its catastrophic rear-end collision reputation for a minute. Even as a design, the Pinto was a disaster. It was small, boxy, and looked cheap in every conceivable way. There was no effort to create something visually appealing, just a no-frills, utilitarian box that perfectly embodied mediocrity. Sliding into number 11, we have the Marcos Mantis, a British sports car that tried to be quirky but ended up being just plain weird. With its low, wide fiberglass body and pop-up headlights that looked like misplaced eyes, the Mantis didn't just challenge beauty standards, it shoved them off a cliff with its pop-up, googly eyes. While it might have had some performance chops, its appearance was so bizarre that many couldn't help but call it an automotive eyesore. At number 10, the Pontiac GTO, a once iconic muscle car, underwent a redesign in 1973 that many argue was nothing short of a betrayal of its legacy. Once known for its aggressive, powerful stance, the new GTO looked like a deflated version of its former self. Based on the mid-sized Le Mans platform, lacked the muscularity and bold details that had defined previous generations. The droopy front end was a sad departure from the fierce lines that once made it a symbol of American performance, leaving fans and critics alike questioning where it all went wrong. Number 9 brings us to the AMC Matador Coupe, a car that looked as if it had been hit by a design crisis. With its oversized, awkward bodywork, think bulbous fenders and strangely sloping rear, it was as if the car had been designed by a committee with no one willing to take responsibility for a coherent vision. The prominent grille and mismatched headlights only added to the overall sense of discomfort. The Matador Coupe was meant to exude sportiness, but instead it ended up looking bloated and ungainly. It's one of those cars that makes you wonder if the designers were having an off day, or perhaps a decade. At number 8, we can't forget the Bricklin SV1, a car with doors that were more trouble than they were worth, and styling that missed the mark by a mile. This Canadian-made sports car had ambitions of being a true performance machine, but its execution was marred by clunky gull-wing doors that looked more like experimental art than functional design. The overall bulky and unfinished look of the Bricklin only cemented its reputation as a misadventure in automotive design. It was as if every innovative idea went out the window in favor of a confused, disjointed approach that left no one particularly impressed. Sliding into number 7, we encounter the Reliant Robin, the British three-wheeler that became as infamous for its instability as for its laughable looks. With its single front wheel and 2 at the back, the Robin looked perpetually on the verge of tipping over. Its lopsided, almost comical design made it a favorite target for ridicule, an automotive punchline that never failed to elicit a smirk. Sure, it might have been a cheap and cheerful form of transportation for some, but in the realm of style, it was an outright disaster that earned its spot by defying the very principles of balanced design. At number 6, we head over to Britain, where Aston Martin, a name synonymous with sleek, powerful beauty, pulled a move so radical it might as well have been a punch in the face. The Lagonda Series 1 was their attempt at a futuristic luxury car, but what emerged looked more like a doorstop that had been given a digital makeover. Its wedge-shaped, flat-surfaced exterior felt as if someone had taken a block of metal, measured twice with a ruler, and then cut it with a set square. Sure, the digital dashboard was a tech marvel at the time, but the overall styling was as cold and uninspired as a deflated balloon. It was a bold statement that, frankly, fell flat, both visually and emotionally. Moving on with our list, at number 5, we find the Chevrolet Chevette, a subcompact that was built to be fuel efficient and affordable, yet managed to achieve only one thing in terms of design: pure, unadulterated blandness. Its basic, boxy shape and lack of any distinctive design flourishes meant that it blended into the background, an anonymous member of the automotive world. The Chevette might have been practical, but it was about as exciting as a tax form. Its presence on our list is a testament to the fact that sometimes a focus on cost-cutting can erase any chance of making a visual impact. Next up at number 4, the AMC Pacer takes the spotlight, a car that became the poster child for 1970s automotive kitsch. With its wide body, narrow front end, and enormous glass area, the Pacer looked like something that was born out of a design experiment gone wrong. Its proportions were bizarre, its curves awkward, and it had a cartoonish quality that made it hard to take seriously. It was a design that dared to be different, but instead of being innovative, it was downright perplexing. In a decade that already celebrated the outrageous, the Pacer's looks became a symbol of automotive excess in the worst possible way. How did the AMC Pacer become a pop culture icon despite its polarizing design? Surprisingly, the Pacer's uniqueness eventually worked in its favor. It became an emblem of an era defined by experimentation and excess, a symbol of the 1970s that filmmakers, musicians, and advertisers later embraced for its unmistakable charm. Shifting gears into number 3, the Austin Allegro slams onto our list as the British family car that many consider one of the ugliest ever made. The car was so notoriously misshapen that its design has become a byword for automotive failure. With its short bonnet, elongated cabin, and even a square steering wheel that looked more at home in a boardroom than behind the wheel, the Allegro was a design misfire on almost every level. It wasn't just that it looked odd, it looked like it had been cobbled together in a rush by a team that had lost its creative spark. The Austin Allegro's enduring reputation as an eyesore is hard to shake, and it still sparks controversy among car enthusiasts today. Alright, now at number 2, the Chevrolet Vega makes a pit stop. Initially hailed as a promising small car, the Vega quickly earned a reputation for being as problematic in design as it was in performance. With its uninspired generic looks, the Vega epitomized the idea that you can't just slap a badge on a mediocre design and call it a day. It was plagued by issues ranging from rust to engine failures, and its bland styling only compounded its many problems. The Vega is a classic example of a car that tried to offer affordability and efficiency, but ended up disappointing in every conceivable way, especially when it came to turning heads for the right reasons. And finally, taking the crown at number 1, we have the AMC Gremlin, a car that is often cited as the epitome of 1970s automotive misadventures. The Gremlin's chopped-off rear design looks like someone simply decided to stop the drawing halfway through, leaving us with a vehicle that is as awkward as it is unattractive. Its design is a patchwork of questionable choices that scream, "We ran out of time," and its poor handling and outdated technology only serve to highlight its many flaws. It remains a hot topic of debate for anyone brave enough to discuss the most infamous design disasters of its era. So there you have it, our countdown of the 18 ugliest cars of the 1970s. Do you agree with our list? Were there any contenders you think should have made the cut? Let us know in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, or should we say down ugly car lane, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our future automotive deep dives. We've got plenty more interesting and hopefully less visually offensive car content coming your way. And also make sure to check out our previous video as well. I'll see you in the next one.